Do 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 do. Let's talk.
Hello, Radioheads. You know I'm L Man, and I'm here with author Alex Teplish. He wrote what seems like very interesting books that I clearly haven't read, but I would like to. In the beginning, Epic of the Anunnaki, based on ancient astronaut theories and survivor Aron's story, one of the least documented episodes of the Holocaust. Whoa, hi.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. You could tell us a little bit about your background and who you are.
Sure. So I immigrated to the United States with my parents, my actually extended family as well, in the late 70s from the former Soviet Union, uh, actually from Odessa, Ukraine. And we came to
Oh,
the United States as refugees. We have a Jewish background, and there was a lot of persecution in the Soviet Union against Jewish people at the time, as well as non-existent opportunities for people to grow in life. So we had this great opportunity to come to America, and we did. And I
mhm.
grew up in Brooklyn, New York, ever since.
Okay, I'm going to skip right to your Holocaust book because that seems to relate more to your life than aliens. Although, or not, maybe it's not even aliens, but my
Mhm.
alien worshiping or loving friends. Whoa, I'm in a club right now. Hold on one second. We're going to change. We'll keep it. It's the radio. Who cares? I'll just suffer. Okay, so one, I just have to say the video trailers for your book, they look awesome. Um,
Thank you.
how do you make such great trailers? For one, what's the
Right.
process of making the trailers? And then we'll go to Aaron's story.
Mhm. So I've been working in technology and marketing for almost my entire career. I have a
Mhm.
diverse background, and I picked up video editing, graphic design, marketing all along the way. So bringing all those skills together and creating compelling and engaging trailers is part of what I do for my own projects.
Yeah, they definitely do that. Sometimes people have a book and it's just the book, and
Mhm.
then I have to make something up. And I wish there was a trailer. I wish there was an audiobook so I could see more. So you have really great marketing. So if anyone wants to see great marketing, I would highly recommend you check out Alex Teplish because authors, this is the way to do it in my idea. Okay. So Aaron's story, your book, Aaron's story, is described as one of the least documented episodes of the Holocaust.
Mhm.
Please tell us a little about this little known story and who Aaron is.
Sure. So the full title of the book is Survivor, Aron's Story. And Aron is my grandfather, or was my grandfather. He
Okay.
passed away in 2012. In 1996, he gave an interview of over 3 hours, video interview of his testimony of his experience during World War II and the Holocaust to the
Hmm.
Shoah Foundation, which was founded by Steven Spielberg. I took the video footage, translated it from his native tongue of Russian to
Hmm.
English, and put the whole experience into a storyline. So I tried to keep it as accurate to his tellings as much as possible, as well as researching the historical context and making sure that everything corresponds to the history that was happening at the time. So I took his experience,
Hmm.
I created a graphic novel memoir, but I felt like
Hmm.
that wasn't really answering all my questions about this time of history. So I also created a second part of the book, which is all included in this one hardcover book, which is more like a historical context of all the different puzzle
Okay.
pieces leading up to this experience.
Okay. So if someone wasn't really educated on times of the Holocaust, would this be a good book for them to read to see what was going on accurately, or is there a lot of spin?
Oh, there's definitely no spin. I actually also hired a historian that works for a museum, a Holocaust
Hmm.
Education Museum, to confirm that all of my information was accurate and historically accurate. I also did a lot of research on the visuals so that my artists can draw everything as accurate as possible, down to the uniforms, down to the guns that were used during the war and everything. It really tells the story of my grandfather and his family, but many others that lived in that region at the time and what they experienced during the Holocaust. But then I
Hmm.
also answer a lot of the historical context questions in the second part of the book.
Okay. So your book, Aaron's story, well, okay. I'm going to skip around. We're going to have to
Mhm.
edit this interview. Editor,
Sure.
edit this part out.
Mhm.
Okay. Writers often want the audience to experience specific feelings or they want to trigger specific thoughts. What
Mhm.
thoughts or feelings do you hope your readers experience while reading this book?
Right. So that's a great question. I felt that there's a lot of novels or books out there on the topic of the Holocaust, but not as many that are visual. I wanted
Great.
to. I wanted to engage the next generation of readers and a younger audience. And that's
Hmm.
why I decided to produce this book in this format. The goal is really for Holocaust education and empathy education, and really connect to other cultures as well, and bring in the commonalities. I also tie in some of my descriptions of history with the civil rights movement,
Okay.
and other parts of this project also connect with the civil rights movement and how Holocaust survivors, many of which came to America and assisted alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and others during the civil rights movement. And my goal is really to have people understand this type of time of history, which was probably the deadliest genocide of all time, the deadliest war
Hmm.
of all time. And to prevent humanity from repeating the mistakes of the past, we need to learn about this time of history.
Do you think the Holocaust could happen again?
Well, there have been many genocides since the Holocaust, maybe
Hmm.
not as many killed, but
Right.
still just as tragic for those people. And it could happen again, of course. I believe that there could be similar situations happening right now. We just don't know of them.
Hmm.
We usually find out when it's too late. And I also wanted to not just connect with the number, where most people, the least they know is 6 million Jews were killed, or about 11 million people were killed during the Holocaust
Right.
by Nazi Germany. And that's really the extent of what most people know. But I
Hmm.
wanted them to connect to the individual experiences, specifically my grandfather in this case, um, losing both his parents to starvation, um, other people that were killed along the way in all types of tragic ways. Not everybody ended up in a traditional concentration camp, into a gas chamber. There were other methods of extermination happening.
Right.
And also my grandmother, who was also a survivor, losing her father, two little baby sisters, and a grandmother during this time.
Wow. So for this book and writing nonfiction in general, what would you say is one of the toughest things or any obstacles you faced while writing nonfiction and trying to keep it honest?
Right. The toughest, I mean, some of the toughest things are coming to terms that humans are able to do such evil and
Hmm.
monstrous things against other people. Also, dealing with your own emotions as you're learning about the individual testimonies and the types of
Right.
loss that people experience. Um, but I do always try to find the silver lining, even to this tragic part of history, and that is
Hmm.
for us as humanity to progress even further, to prevent these kinds of situations from happening again, to avoid
Right.
war at all costs, but also to really take a step back from our day-to-day anxieties and look at the most tragic part of history.
Hmm.
One of, I'd like to say one of, because there are many other tragic parts of history. But look at these tragic parts of history and compare to our own daily anxieties and say, maybe I don't have it so bad.
Right.
I can, compared to what these people went through, I can deal with my situation right now.
Right.
And that's definitely another component of this
Right.
exploration.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain about the fluorescent lighting, and this is why I wear these fluorescent light blocking glasses. So
uh,
if you get sick from fluorescent lighting, which can cause lupus symptoms, these
uh,
glasses, I think they're called Theraspecs. They really help you out.
mm.
All right, back to you. So let's go to your other book. I have way more questions about this one, but we only have so much time.
Yeah. Before we go to my other book, though, I just wanted to
The,
mention one important thing. I recently
sure,
launched an interactive virtual museum,
that's
which
what I
is
was going to
free,
ask you about.
which is free
Continue.
to the public 24/7 online. You
Okay.
don't need a VR headset to explore it. You can go to it directly from your browser. It's linked from the top of the website, www.survivoraronsstory.com. You'll see virtual museum, and that really gives anyone the opportunity to walk through a 3D environment in a museum
Hmm.
setting and learn about this part of history and a lot of the extended parts related to it.
Wow, really cool. Okay, I got to see that. That I did not check out. All right, so
Yeah.
we're going to skip around. This other book seems very, very different than what we've just been
Yeah.
discussing. So I think we're totally switching gears. All right.
Mhm.
So please tell us just a little about the Epic of the Anunnaki, which takes us back thousands of years to the Sumerian civilization, and they
Mhm.
viewed godlike beings, the Anunnaki. So will this book tell us about real aliens?
So the concept of this book is based on the ancient astronaut theory, which has been around since probably the late 60s, mid 70s. There are two world-renowned authors that are most famous for publishing books in during that time. One is
Hmm.
Eric von Daniken, the other one is Zechariah Sitchin. They both wrote countless books on this subject, and they researched ancient civilizations, going all the way back to the first known civilization to man, which are the Sumerians. There were other
Right.
civilizations before them, but they were the first to have writing and to invent many of the things we
Right.
still use to this day. Um, they invented advanced astronomy, advanced mathematics. The wheel came out of their civilization.
Hmm.
Writing came out of their civilization. I mean, pretty much everything we know today that is modern human came from them,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they claim to have received most of their knowledge from the gods. They also call
Right.
them the Anunnaki or Anuna. Anuna is another term they've used for them.
Okay.
They depicted them in some of their tablets, clay tablets and stone tablets as well, as humanoid people, as humanoid, potentially extraterrestrials.
Right.
They also depicted them as being much taller than the common man at the time.
Right. Right.
And attribute, like I said, all of their knowledge or most of their knowledge as being handed down to them by this other group of beings.
Fascinating. Yeah, fascinating. I've heard a bit about it. I know some
Mhm.
people that claim they can communicate with the Anunnaki. I've been to channelings of the Anunnaki being channeled. I don't know if they were there or not. That's up for another discussion another day. Channeling aliens. All right, switching gears a little bit here too. So I was just discussing the true story of Adam and Eve. A true story question. I don't know. So we were just talking about this the other night, and a big Bible follower was re-summing it up for me. So the intriguing trailer for your book reads Cain and Abel, Adam and Eve, the Great Flood. What if it was all misunderstood? So
Mhm.
can you explain this big tease in your trailer? Was it misunderstood?
Right. So many of the stories in the Old Testament or the Bible, the original part of the Bible,
Hmm.
are retellings or similar to stories that the Sumerians wrote down as well about their
Hmm.
gods.
Hmm.
There are all types of connections. The creation of mankind is one of them. Uh,
Hmm.
they describe being created by the Anunnaki to toil for the gods, basically to do the hard labor that the gods didn't want to do, or that's what we call them
Oh,
gods, but they called them something else. So
interesting.
now, by using the word gods, it becomes more confusing. It becomes more spiritual. But really, at the time, they saw them as flesh and blood, but different from themselves.
Right.
So
Wow.
what I've done is I've taken many of these Sumerian stories and combined them or found the parallels in the Old Testament. And what my graphic novel really is a retelling of the book of Genesis from that
Hmm.
extraterrestrial perspective.
Wow, that's fascinating. All right. And any plans on putting this into an audiobook?
Well, my format of choice is graphic novels. Um,
Hmm.
my ultimate goal for both my projects are to have animated films created or series created from adapted from my books.
Right.
So probably not audio because there's less writing and more visual in the books.
Okay.
There's plenty to read and plenty of writing that I've done for my artists to depict what needed to be depicted in the books. But I am working on a sequel to In the Beginning, the Epic of the Anunnaki, which will take us back to the present and connect current events, conspiracies, and keep going back and forth between the present and ancient times.
Very interesting. Okay. And this might be my last question. So I know a husband and wife, and the wife used the Bible in simply a spiritual sense. The
Mhm.
husband thinks everything in the Bible actually happened and it's not written metaphorically at all. Very
Mhm.
interesting couple. So will this book settle the debate between this husband and wife at all? Or will it pick a
Um,
side?
like any other book, it's really up to the reader to interpret what they want out of the book. What I like to say is that humanity has taken these ancient stories, continued to retell them through time, and through time, just like the game of telephone, some of the pieces got reinterpreted or misunderstood.
Hmm. Hmm.
So along that route, people always had a spiritual pursuit in parallel to wanting to know our common origins. So they've mixed in the spiritual pursuit, the ancient history, and the allegories into what we know as the Bible. And I believe that if you, as a reader, you can pull allegories or morals out of the Bible, but you can also
Hmm.
pull ancient stories out of the Bible. Um, I consider my graphic novel science fiction because I had to interpret it in my own way. So
Hmm.
really, you can get a lot of different things out of it. I did insert some spiritual perspectives in my story, but that's not my central area of focus. It's more about telling the origin of humanity.
Right. So since the stories of the Bible might be, they might be true or it might just be completely flawed and misunderstood because of the game of telephone, what do you think of people basing their lives very strictly upon the Bible, which may or not
Mhm.
be true? It might be very flawed.
Right. So one of the things I like to say about this theory and my book is that I don't like to use the word believe for myself, at least, because I don't have the proof. I believe that it's plausible. The theory is plausible, but I can't say that this is it and I have the ultimate truth. And I don't
Mhm.
believe that any human that I know of or that most of us know of has any ultimate truth. Everybody interprets
Mhm.
things in their own way. Um, so anyone who says that this is literal, it's hard for me to believe that. There's no proof.
Right.
The evidence is there. There are a lot of ancient anomalies, and I think we need to look at them and say this is possible, but it's also not. It's also possible that something else happened.
Right. Right.
And
Keep an open
I'm
mind.
able to live in both scenarios and live my life, not base my day to day on these
Yeah.
kinds of potential theories or um, even if the origins are true, my day to day does
Right.
not change. And I would recommend the same thing to religious people. Don't try
Hmm.
to impose your beliefs on others. If you live to a moral code, that's great. As long as nobody else is getting in your way, don't get in other people's way.
So since you've done so much spiritual and historic investigations, this will be my final question. Do
Mhm.
you believe in karma? Do you believe that people get what they deserve for better or for worse? And why?
I think life is a series of many layers. Our consciousness goes much deeper than what we see on a regular basis. I do believe that there are some elements of karma. And again, I don't like to use the word believe, but I believe it's plausible that there are some elements of karma that exist and are related to the laws of physics and to the laws of science that we follow. Um, and I do think that there are sometimes reasons why things happen, and there's the ultimate free will is for every one of us to make that choice to live the most positive life we can and try to influence others to be positive.
Hmm. Well, you're a very interesting person. So now social media
Thank you.
time, where can our listeners find you? Your website, list all of
Yeah.
that for anyone listening.
So I have Facebook pages for both my books, and I also have websites for both my books. They're very similar.
Hmm.
Let's start with the websites. For Survivor Aron's Story, that's really the website, survivoraronsstory.com, Aron with one A. And then the Facebook is facebook.com/Survivor Aron Story. The other book is In the Beginning, the Epic of the Anunnaki, and that is in the beginning, the book.com. Also, facebook.com/in the beginning, the book.
And are you on Instagram or Facebook?
I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram, but
Okay.
not as much. But I'm definitely on Facebook myself,
Hmm.
and I put out a lot of variety of content, not just related to my book, but other extended content and articles and new current events that are related to those topics. I publish them on my pages.
Well, very interesting. Highly recommend checking out the website. Thank you so much for being on the radio. And now back to more. It came from the radio.
Thank you so much.